Over the weekend, a Jedi and a God won Soccer American Awards. Form went straight out the window in Liverpool, and is Brandon Vasquez coming to MLS a good idea? That and more here on Monday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kickaround, working towards becoming the new home of the American soccer conversation. Coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. My name's Robert Kerr. Happy to be joined by Mr. Jason Davis. How you doing, sir?
I am good. I am okay. I am adjusting to the new normal, which is my life in Puerto Rico. I'm going home soon, but for the moment, still down here, enjoying the island, enjoying the rain, and then blazing hot sun, and then rain again. It's okay. I'm doing good. I'm adjusting, like I said.
It's just the two types of weather down there, eh? Up here, it is kind of the mother of all Mondays. It is like the return to school, return to work Monday after the holidays. I know locally we're kind of on a Sunday night football victory hangover as well. Not easy to get the children out the door, and work motivation, very difficult. But yeah, we're here now early to talk about the Sockers.
Well, here's the thing. I would be working if I was back at home in the home studio in Northern Virginia, even though there are 12 inches of snow on the ground. And if you know anything about D.C., when there are more than 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground, the entire city shuts down. There is no activity. Nothing is working. Nobody goes to work. Nobody goes to school. I know Midwesterners love to laugh at us about our terrible handling of winter weather, but just not made for it, Robert. Just not made for it in the nation's capital. So I guess I'm glad I'm in Puerto Rico because I don't have to deal with the snow and the craziness that comes with that.
The best blizzards come when you're on a warm vacation. That's what I say. Before we get into it, I know you have a limited roster, but shirt check of the day. What you got there, Jason?
Yeah, this is my Maryland Bobcats, who have been in the news in the last couple of months. Maryland Bobcats, formerly of NISA, kicked out of NISA. Not sure what's going on with their league status. I think we need to check in on that. This is my Maryland Bobcats glitch kit. It is one a couple years ago. Sort of looks like the TikTok logo, but on a kit. Everybody looks at it and goes, "Jason, you're making my eyes hurt." And I go, I'm sorry. I like it. What can I say? Bought this one myself, which is not usually a thing because I've been given so many over the years. But I did buy this one myself because I liked it that much.
Eye-catching, to say the least. If you are watching right now and you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the Morning Kickaround channel. Morning Kickaround, 2 words. Don't go down the rabbit hole of Chuck Norris workout programs. Morning Kickaround, 2 words. We're just about 30 or so subscribers away to a big milestone in the growth of this program. So please hit that subscribe button. Follow along on social media at MKickaround on the X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Don't call them skeets or people get mad at you. And then write an email to us, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And after much teasing and much procrastination, we're a podcast, Jason.
We are a podcast. If you're looking for a way to listen to the show on the run, maybe you're out in the snow in Northern Virginia and you want something to listen to, we're going to post Morning Kickaround every single day as a podcast. That'll be good, I think, for a lot of people. I'm a podcast guy myself, Rob. I am engaging with YouTube a little bit more and more, but I'm a guy who likes, I'm always doing something, always moving around. I'm working out, I'm running errands, I'm dropping kids off, and I love a podcast. So I'm excited for this show to become a podcast.
Yeah, check it out on Spotify, and we will add more platforms as we get our hands around the podcast platforms. But I'd say it's probably time to get into Monday's headlines. Let's kick some long balls, shall we?
Let's go ahead and kick some long balls.
Antonee Jedi Robinson wins American Male Player of the Year. That's long ball #1 here on Monday. He had an impressive 2024. For Fulham over the last season and a half, he's had 64 appearances and 13 assists. And in 2024 alone, had 9 appearances and 2 assists for the United States men's national team, garnering him Men's Player of the Year. What do you think about that, Mr. Davis?
Well, I mean, beating out Christian Pulisic in this era is no mean feat. I mean, good for Jedi. I absolutely think he deserves it. Like, I actually don't have any issue with him taking home this award. He's been excellent. I think it's a recognition of not just his national team contributions, but what he's done at the club level. And he has risen into a conversation of best left backs, not just in the Premier League, I think, Rob, but, kind of across the top European leagues. Is he at his best as good as Alphonso Davies or Teo Hernandez or, insert left back here? Maybe not. I think there's a question about Robertson at Liverpool and whether Jedi is better, and maybe that has something to do with the transfer down the line. But for the moment, Jedi Robinson has been excellent. He said, "It's an incredible honor. Representing our country isn't something you do for individual accolades. It's always about putting the team first, trying to do my best for the boys and for the country, and to be rewarded for that is an amazing feeling." Again, surprised by this. He was surprised when Tim Howard gave him the news when he was being interviewed. Thought it was just a random, hey, I got to do an interview. We got to talk to Tim Howard, former U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, and then they gave him the honor of the U.S. men's national team player of the year, the men's player of the year for U.S. soccer. Notable that he's the first defender to win it since. Rob, do you know? Any guesses? You already know. You looked it up.
I already know, but it's a good name. It's a deep cut, though. It's a long way back.
Yeah, Gucci Onyewu in 2006 is how far you have to go back to find a defender who has won this award. So it's a notable feat for Jedi Robinson. I think he's certainly capable of winning 1 or 2 more before he's done. He's 27, so he is right smack in his prime. This is why we talk about the transfer. That if it's going to come, it probably needs to come now, right? The move to a bigger club, an opportunity to play Champions League level football, kind of needs to come now for Jedi Robinson, or his window is going to close. But he looks great. He's been great for Fulham, and no issues here considering his contributions to the national team.
Yeah, third Fulham-related player to receive this honor, actually. Brad Friedel and Clint Dempsey won it on multiple occasions, which is an interesting little factoid. And
not a lot of trophies over there in the case at Fulham. And I know this doesn't actually go in the Fulham trophy case, Rob, but it's nice to kind of attach it to a club that, can't really take any trophy for granted. Hey, great that we've got 3 U.S. men's national team players who have won Player of the Year. That's excellent.
Yeah, they probably don't have like a whole museum dedicated to their trophies, like some of the giants of the game have probably at Fulham. Is there an awards closet or something at Cottage, at Craven Cottage?
I think they probably have like a printout. Like you post up on the wall guys who made the team. I'm probably sure they have like a banner, maybe on a dot matrix printer. Just considering how long ago it was that Brad Friedel won the U.S. Men's National Team Player of the Year award while at Fulham, you could have it's posted on a cork board there in the hallway at Craven Cottage. Everybody can check it out. Hey, look, Jedi Robinson, he won U.S. Soccer Male Player of the Year. Congratulations, Jedi. Good job.
Good footnote for the club. And just joking aside, Antonee Robinson's consistency has probably been one of his most admirable qualities, because you keep on seeing him stack good performances on good performances. Whenever you hear a note about him, I can't really recall a commentator or a pundit saying that he was caught out too far up the field or made a bad pass or anything like that. I mean, sure, he's not like bulletproof. I don't want to glaze him too much, but at the same time, I don't recall him for quite some time. Like when he first busted on the scene, he had plenty of up and down performances, but I can't really recall that over this run that he's being awarded for here in 2024.
Yeah, I do think he got beat to the back post in this just most recent Fulham game with Ipswich there. It led to the Smotic goal for Ipswich that put Fulham behind.
So not the only fullback having trouble while they're in the spotlight, eh?
No. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that other one. Plays on the other side for your club. But I think he's not perfect, but he's come leaps and bounds on as a defender. I mean, that was always the question. He could get up the field. I mean, he has this running style that is certainly fascinating sometimes to see, loping, long legs and all that. His crossing ability has improved dramatically as well. I mean, he's even talked about how much he's worked on his crossing ability and how good that is now. So he's a weapon going forward. He's a much better defender than he used to be going the other way. And considering that sometimes you only get one or the other, and maybe if you're Liverpool, you're wondering whether or not you really want to keep a guy who can get victimized like that on the right side. But this is just a great honor for a player who absolutely deserves it. And I don't even want to make it about like, well, what did Christian Pulisic not do to win this? No, Jedi Robinson deserves it.
Yeah, it's tough on Pulisic because he's in the form of his career there in the first couple months of the season. But Robinson, over the span of 2024, seems to be a deserving winner. Long ball number 2 here on Monday morning. The big game of the weekend, at least on the European club calendar, Manchester United 2, Liverpool 2 at Anfield. The whole trope of form goes out the window when it's a big rivalry like this, and that proved to be true. Arguably Manchester United's best performance under Ruben Amorim, and one of the less impressive performances from the home team.
Look, I will say that, yes, I know 73.6% of English Premier League games happen in downpours, but that one seemed to be particularly bad, Rob. It was,
and I didn't think that the commentators until very late in the game didn't really lend any credence to the conditions, because there was definitely some passing and some quality shortages, I'd say, through parts of this game. But then when you saw the ISO close-up shots, you're like, oh, that is like freezing rain coming down at an angle in these guys' faces. So maybe cut a little slack to these guys.
Again, I know a lot of them are used to it, but you can't tell me that there weren't a couple of moments for Mo Salah, for Luis Diaz, I remember specifically, where just footing and technique kind of goes out the window a bit because it is absolutely coming down. Now, that's not an excuse for Liverpool because Manchester United had to play in the same conditions. And I will say, you could absolutely read this as Liverpool is lucky to get a point out of this game.
With the last-minute moment chance there?
Well, the chance from Harry Maguire, which, yeah, that's not the guy you want to have that chance. He was there. He had an opportunity. I'm not even going to be so mean about it. I said Jerry Maguire could have finished that chance, Robert, is what I said over there on Blue Sky. And then somebody said, Prince Harry could have finished that chance. And I said, well, maybe Harry Potter could have spelled it in. I mean, it became a joke a little bit, but, again, he got himself in a position. It's a downpour. I'm not sure I'm going to be too mean about Harry Maguire not finishing, but I'm talking about the De Ligt handball, right? Like, yes, it's a handball. Yes, by the letter of the law, it is a penalty. But, that is not a moment Liverpool – was the ball going in the net? Was it going to get past Onana if De Ligt doesn't have his hand waving in the air? I don't know. So you could argue that that's a little bit of luck that falls Liverpool's way, and if not for the Mo Salah penalty – that's a loss at home to a team that's been so bad that they were talking about a relegation fight. So bad that they're talking about
that's malarkey, by the way.
After 15, 14 games, whatever it's been. I mean, the things are never as bad as they seem, I think is a fairly decent lesson to take away from this. I have seen some numbers that suggest United has improved a bit defensively since Amorim has arrived, which is something, right? That's something for a team that had been so poor. There's not a lot of good to take away from United, even in that performance, even the way that they played in this game. But there's still enough fight in them, and it's still the Premier League, and it's not anybody can beat anybody on any given day, but it's not that sometimes either. And as you said, in a match between rivals going back decades, there's going to be a lot of energy that comes out of United. United wants to put on the good showing. Amorim obviously coached them up. You give him credit for that.
This matchup between Liverpool and Manchester United, if you were going to draw American parallels, I would say it almost is akin to University of Michigan, Ohio State. Not each team is powerful at the same time, but the team that's lower down in the pecking order on any given year will circle that game as, if we're having a lousy season, at the very least, we need to win or get a result in that game. And they did. And I didn't think it was going to be a walkover, how many pundits thought going into it, just based on the form table and where both teams are at. But I don't know if impressed, but surprised that the pressing from Manchester United was so effective. The goals, or at least the first goal that they scored, and a couple chances that Manchester United got, they forced turnovers from bad passes from the fullbacks, especially from Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right, pretty explicitly for the first goal.
Can we pause here for a
Sure.
second? Let's talk about Trent, because he has taken a beating online.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a bad performance at a bad time.
Well, so okay. So there's a couple of things working here for Trent Alexander-Arnold. It is obviously Liverpool versus United, and no matter what circumstances, that's a massive game. It carries massive implications. One side wants to beat the other side. You have Liverpool atop the table, and if they can beat United, that obviously gives them even more reason to believe that they're going to see this thing out, and they're going to become Premier League champions for just the second time. That's a big thing. And so every point, every opportunity to extend a lead over Arsenal it feels massive. So if you drop points and one player has a bad performance, people are going to point to that player and say, hey, what's going on here? This is your fault, especially when you have a reputation of being a top quality player the way that Trent Alexander-Arnold does. But of course, there's also the possibility of him leaving in the summer, and the idea of a pre-contract somewhere, and Real Madrid waiting around to see what he's going to do and whether he's trying to leverage Real Madrid interest into a better contract at Liverpool, and then he doesn't play well against United when the spotlight is on him. At the same time, Ron, United had a plan. Bruno Fernandes exploited the space that Trent Alexander-Arnold is responsible for defensively, and no one has ever said that Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best defender. That has never been part of his portfolio of abilities, right? He does a lot of other things well, and he's not the worst defender, right? And that's the trade-off you make with a fullback in a system where you're asking them to be part of the attack. So tell me, do you think that this is really a big black mark on Trent, and what does it mean for his future?
I would say in the next 48 hours until the next game, it's going to be bad for him. But in the large scheme of things, even the best players in the world have bad games. I mean, and it was who he says a lot of the shortcomings came from, being up the field as he's asked to do. I mean, granted, his tracking back was shocking at times. He didn't exactly track back and cover himself in glory. But I think if there was a move on the cards, I don't think one game's performance would derail that.
Right. It is what it is. I still think Liverpool wins the title. I don't think this changes a lot for United, other than, as you were saying, probably no need to worry about a relegation fight.
No, because I mean, if they win 3 more games the rest of the season, they're in the clear. I don't think that's realistic. The whole relegation, I feel like that was maybe even a mistake by Amorim saying anything about relegation, but I understand he's trying to lower expectations of the feverish fan base for
I think
United.
To be humble in the face of some pretty difficult circumstances, and he doesn't want to come off as Ten Hag did, where he constantly pointed to, but the performance was fine. Our performance was good. Our result wasn't good, but our performance, if you look at the performance, right, you can see, and it's that's
the performance. Even when the performance looked bad, you would say that.
Yeah, exactly. I think Emery wants to be the anti-Ten Hag in that regard. Anyway, it's one match in a 38-game season. It's not going to change the fortunes of either one of these teams in dramatic ways, despite how much we put on it.
Yeah, I mean, especially the draw with Liverpool still remaining at the top of the league with a 6-point cushion and a game in hand. And rivals such as Arsenal and Chelsea both did the same. They both had, controversial draws. There was a lot of VAR-y stuff this weekend. I wouldn't say it was a classic weekend in the Premiership.
No, I mean, it was a little bit all over the map in that regard, and you do wonder. I mean, Chelsea has kind of come up against that moment where they were going to be tested to see if they were truly title contenders, and they have faded. And I don't think that means they're not going to make the Champions League, and that would be an achievement for Maresca and company. But I don't think they're a title contender, and I don't think they ever really were. I mean, I was pretty consistent with that, even when they were in second place, that I don't think this Chelsea team is ready.
And after that result, Manchester United sitting 13th, Liverpool at the top of the league. Long ball number 3 here on Monday morning. We look to Riyadh, Why, you ask? It is the Italian Super Cup final this afternoon at 2. It's AC Milan versus Internazionale. What do you think about this one? Are you revved up for some afternoon Italian soccer in the Middle East?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm revved up. I mean, obviously, there's a potential here for Pulisic and Musa to get on the field and help Milan win a trophy. And in this era of Milan, that would be something. And especially for their brand new manager, Sergio Conceição, who has chosen it seems to be in that match versus Juventus, he made the choice that he wanted to go for this, right? That this was important for some reason. And maybe it is to set a tone at Milan, right? Under new management, we play for trophies. We go after it. We're not worried about rotation or what's coming or Champions League or fixtures later. We'll cross that bridge when we get to them. We'll cross those bridges when we get to them. Right now, what we've got in front of us is an opportunity to win a trophy, and you should never take that for granted. That's the feeling I get from what we've got here. And, other than that, though, I mean, there's still the Riyadh factor, right? Rob, how can I get worked up and excited and hyped for a game that's happening way too far away from where it's supposed to be happening with fans who are not, I know there's this argument that this is a global game. And I've had this argument on the radio. Like I've talked to people on the radio when the idea of Spain playing the Spanish League, La Liga, playing a meaningful game in the United States or more, right? And this has been out there. This has been mooted because I think there's an effort, right? Relevant Sports, that's what I was trying to think of. Relevant Sports went to court to bring a meaningful La Liga match to the United States. They went to a judge and they said, this is a restraint of trade. This violates antitrust law. U.S. Soccer cannot prevent us from convincing La Liga to bring a game to the United States. And the court said, you're right. By the way, this is a major thing about why soccer in this country is a little bit more complicated to turn into one big family that we all move in the same direction, right? Because there's always going to be somebody saying you're restraining my trade, right? Those laws are there for a good reason, but they kind of have a consequence, or they have an impact on soccer that I think a lot of times we miss. But that idea of playing games outside, I've had people call me up and say, I'm so excited. I was so excited to see my team come on tour in the summer because I'll never get to see them otherwise. And I think they should bring real games around the world to the fan base who lives in America or whatever. And I don't want to just be a traditionalist just to be a traditionalist, Rob. I don't want to just throw up my hands and say, well, that's wrong, and not actually think through the reasons that I think it's wrong. But I think once we start doing this, and the Super Cup is not a great example of the slippery slope because it's a secondary, tertiary competition in Italy, right? Like are they, before the season begins, are Milan fans and Inter fans, are they chomping at the bit to win the Supercoppa?
It's like one of those competitions like the Charity Shield or even the League Cup that's coming back midweek. You only care about if you're in it. Like, hey, I would love to win something rather than not win it. But anyone that's like outside of the Italian Super Cup, are they like pining like, man, I wish we were in that?
No, they're not. Right. And again, we've already seen this with La Liga. La Liga did the same exact thing, right? They took their Super Cup, I believe, to Saudi Arabia. Somebody check me on that. I'm pretty sure Saudi Arabia just scooped up all these tertiary competitions that are smaller, right? This is not the League Cup. This is not the FA Cup. This is not the everybody's playing in it. Italian Cup, DFB Pokal. It's not that. This is, in the case of the Super Cup of Spain, it used to be a two-team thing, right? Two teams, the league winner and the cup winner. I think that's right. Right, which is the same thing as the Charity Shield, only they just do it in a different way. They played each other in a Super Cup. Okay. And then they said, Saudi Arabia said, here's a ton of cash. Here's a freighter full of cash. We want you to play that game in our country, but can you also maybe expand it, make it 4 teams, and then we can have a couple more games, and it can be a little bit of a bigger deal, and we can put our spin on it, and everybody will be like, oh, look at this, look at Saudi Arabia. They've got a competition, and it's with some of the biggest clubs because, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atleti, those are teams are going to be in the Spanish version, and AC Milan and Inter and Juventus and Atalanta are going to be in the Italian version. But I understand it's not that big of a competition. It still bothers me. It still bothers me because this game could be at the San Siro, and there would be a full house of people because of the implications of a Milan derby. There would be a full house of people making this feel like a big deal, and instead we're going to get a half-hearted, not very interested, who knows how big crowd in this Supercopa final. It bothers me.
Yeah, Mike in the comments saying it's weird that both teams are from Milan and they have to travel to the final. That's a great point because I watched some of the semifinal on Friday, and I got to say that the crowd on hand did not provide the same sort of atmosphere that the San Siro would. It was definitely a lot more laid back, and you got to feel like, how do Milan fans feel that they're at home, their team is in a final that they aren't probably able to make it to themselves, and AC Milan, they're not winning trophies, year in, year out, so how, like, this is essentially an opportunity for them to watch their team compete for some silverware. But would they actually? But with that said, would they have even been in this competition if it wasn't expanded to 4 teams?
There are a couple of things here. Like the cynical view of this, like the cynical view in the idea in terms of how the money is changing the game, right? It's always easy to point at somebody else and say, well, look at what they're doing. And if we don't do what they're doing, we fall behind, and then we suffer, and then it's worse for us, and we don't want that. So if they're taking Saudi money, we should take Saudi money, right? Even beyond the idea of just like, we want more money, or whoever it is, right? In this case, Italian football authorities, we want more money, and period, end of story. It could also be, well, look at what they're doing. Look at what La Liga is doing with their competition. Look at what, look at the money that's coming into this league or that league or these clubs. And if we want to keep up, if we want to compete, if we want to be in the Champions League or in, the Unify League and be able to win, we have to bring in more money, and this is how we do that. And you could also argue through a cynical viewpoint that this is the competition you do it with. No, if we're going to sell if we're going to sell our souls at all, well, let's sell the piece of our soul that belongs to the Supercopa. Let's not sell our soul on other meaningful competitions. Let's not take, again, this is why the La Liga thing coming to the United States was such a big deal to me, because that feels like punishing fans in Spain for something they didn't do, which was create a world in which you need to be grabbing as much money as possible all the time. And if you're not expanding your fan base globally, you're gonna crash and burn. Right? It's an arms race that leads to destruction. It's mutually assured destruction one day. Whether that happens now or 30 years from now, I don't know, Rob, but it certainly feels like we're taking that path with stuff like this.
On our show, we have lots of bright colors and we try to be jovial and whatnot, but we do kind of end up hammering down on some cynicism here of the topic that we cover, because what's worse than decision making of, if we don't take this money that probably shouldn't be being dished out, then someone else will take this money. And that is like the worst, like that's an avalanche of bad decisions.
You have made a moral choice that is absolutely indefensible. You're not saying I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. You're punting on that idea completely, and the only justification you have is that, well, if I don't do it, somebody else will, or if they're doing it.
I hate that. That's the worst kind of decision making.
It's terrible. It's what you tell your kids not to do, right? It's if somebody jumps off a bridge, are you going to jump off a bridge too? And the Italians are like, yep, we're jumping off that damn bridge right now into the Saudi waters. Let's go.
Yeah, there's $1 billion at the bottom of that bridge.
Johnny Infantino, he lives under that bridge. He's the troll that lives under that bridge, Johnny Infantino, with all the Saudi cash and everybody jumping off.
That should do it for now on that. But the Italian Super Cup this afternoon at 2:00.
Go Christian, go Eunice. That's all I got.
We shall see if what comes of that. I shall say, and I think he logged off, but. earlier in the long balls, Urias asked, or he stated, Sith greater than Jedi. So if Antonee Robinson is Jedi, who is Sith in that equation?
That's a good question. Can we make Trent Alexander-Arnold Sith, or is that too hit you in a bad spot?
If he leaves the boyhood club to go to Real Madrid, he might be considered just that. He was supposed to be the chosen one.
That's right. Oh, that's a good one. All right. I like it.
All right, guys, I said at the top of the show, we are just 30 or so subscribers away from the big first milestone in our YouTubing journey, I should say. That's the big first rung for us to make some growth. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Follow us on social media at Kickaround on the various platforms, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky. Or write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if you're writing in an email, send us in some topics or a question that you'd love to hear about, or even a district. We want to feature as many soccer districts on the show as possible. So throw in a suggestion for that as well.
I saw one comment on our Get to Know Your District about Grand Rapids, Michigan, which I thought was very good, very interesting. Somebody was like, Grand Rapids, LOL. Now, it's the internet. You don't know what that means exactly because nobody says what they actually mean. They just kind of, whatever. Maybe that was a shot at Grand Rapids. If so, I don't know. Sir, what your problem is with Grand Rapids, Michigan? Maybe it's, hey, I want my town to be talked about more. If that's the case, tell us, and we will do it. We will make your town the focus of a Get to Know Your District. So, yeah.
I like Nate pipes in here before we move on. Figo equals Sith, of course.
Figo is because he went because he did the switch. He did the Spanish switch. All right, I guess that counts. I guess
that's a fair shout. We're gonna take a quick moment to catch our breath, and we're gonna delve into Monday's hot topic. I was too on the front of my seat there. I want to get slouching and comfortable here if we're going to get super into the hot topic here. Monday morning, hot topic. Let's get into it. Not only did Antonee Robinson win a big award, but the one and only Lionel Messi won the Presidential Medal of Honor, but he didn't show up. He was one of 18 recipients. He chose to say thank you from afar. What do you think about that? Headline writers didn't like it across American media this morning. One of the fun ones was Messi appears to have scored an own goal without even being on the field.
Oh, okay. That's a little stretch of a metaphor. I like punny headlines when stuff like this happens. But I don't know. We got to come up with ones like, I guess if you got a headline for Lionel Messi not showing up to accept the Presidential Medal of Freedom, let us know in the chat. I would love to share them as I work my brain. I wonder how many people, period, have ever skipped this ceremony, right? It's not a ceremony. Like,
there can't be many.
When you think about it, like if you win an Oscar, you show up, right? You go get your damn Oscar.
But the baller move is to already be like on set for your next awesome movie and accept the award from like, oh, I'm already doing my next thing. That's a baller move. So
it's a baller move, but no production company is going to be like, yeah, just go ahead and stay here and work on your lines instead of going and accepting the Oscar, which is going to bring promotion and publicity to the movie that we're making right now that you can be a part of. Now, obviously, this is a little different. I don't think this is a televised event that everybody's watching. But it is certainly, you think about the level of recognition. I mean, you get knighted by the king. That's kind of what this is in an American context, right? We don't have kings. We don't do the sword deal. You don't have to kneel. It's not all that. Nobody gets to call you sir, or you don't get to be called sir when you're done with it. But it is that, right? This is the same idea. We don't do the royal thing. We don't have that much history. So what we do instead is you get a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Who else got one? Magic Johnson got one. Who else is on the list this time around?
Oh man, there was about 18 of them. I think George Soros was in there, Hillary Clinton was in there, the aforementioned Magic Johnson was in there. There was 18 total, and he was the only one that didn't appear.
So, but we have one of the greatest basketball players of all time who was, I don't want to list off Magic Johnson's achievements because I'll miss some, and I don't know that everybody loves everything about. I think it's pretty uncontroversial, Magic Johnson. Obviously, there's the HIV diagnosis and all of those things. But he's
Bono, Ashton Carter, Hillary Clinton, Michael J. Fox,
Bono,
Jane Goodall,
famously
Ralph Lauren.
Ralph Lauren, you skipped out. Lionel Messi skipped out on going to a ceremony where he could have received this award next to Ralph Lauren. Wow, that's pretty. Denzel Washington got one. Denzel, look, if you have a chance to go do something and share that honor with Denzel Washington, you go. I'm sorry, I don't know what the scheduling conflict that Lionel Messi was referencing. I can't make it. Thank you for the honor. I have a scheduling conflict. Dodging taxes? Is that your scheduling conflict?
Yeah, he had a business meeting with his dad.
Is he attending a youth game in Miami? He's got to be in the stands to watch Thiago or Mateo or whoever plays in the youth system with Inter Miami. What could possibly be so important that you miss this ceremony, that you can't detour to D.C. for just a single day, just a couple of hours? What is so? I know he's an introvert, Rob. I know it's not. This is the thing. Like, he's an introvert who's been thrust into the spotlight. And every time I see a commercial with him, or by the way, there's a Lionel Messi experience that is posted up here in Puerto Rico, and I didn't really know about it until I saw a commercial the other day. And I'm like, do I want to take my kid to something that's probably going to cost me $50? And it's just a bunch of lights and stuff, and you kick a ball, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the man is a marketing machine, obviously, and I know he has responsibility, but this is different. Like, this is beyond.
I was looking for the reason. They just keep on citing scheduling issues, even though he was notified about this in December. So it was multiple weeks to adjust your schedule to receive an award from the United States president.
I mean, I honestly, I cannot fathom what this would be. I cannot. If you have a death in the family, a medical emergency, I may be out. That may be the list. What else is on the list of things that are justifiably an excuse for missing this ceremony? You can't say, like, I got sick. It's cold and flu season, and I just took a bunch of NyQuil, and I can't make it, Prez. I'm sorry.
I've definitely rearranged my schedule for less.
Okay. But you didn't receive the presidential medal.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I've rearranged my schedule. Like, 3 weeks out? I was going to go grocery shopping that day, but
right.
It was a trip to Publix. But going back to the other recipients, Denzel Washington, you said that's a no-doubter just to hang with him. I respect him greatly, and I love a lot of his movies, but I feel like he would, like, eviscerate me and say I was, like, an undisciplined person. It's like... He would just, like, those montages where, like, you see clips of him in interviews and he just, like, goes on some profound, like, self-belief sort of a mantra. I feel like he would just absolutely shred me if I.
He probably would, but then you could go hang out with Bill Nye, who also received the Presidential Medal of
William Nye won?
Yeah, Bill Nye. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Come on, who wouldn't want to hang out with Bill Nye the Science Guy? Ralph Lauren, Magic Johnson, Jane Goodall. You could talk about gorillas. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's, and he posted he was there. Michael J. Fox has a legitimate medical reason for maybe not going to the White House to get this award, and guess what he did? He went to the White House and he got this award.
Our aghast aside, what made Lionel Messi? What did Messi do to deserve this honor?
I don't know. Okay. I think the only soccer player I'm aware of that has received this award is Megan Rapinoe. You can check me on that. We did a little quick research before the show. I know for a fact Lionel Messi is the first male soccer player to ever receive or be granted or be told that he could get the. By the way, does he still get it? Do they send it to him in the mail? Is there like an overnight situation here? Like, is it white glove service? What do you do with the Presidential Medal of Freedom when the guy doesn't show up?
I
Like,
don't think that's one of the envelopes that I have at my post office, like the presidential award
again,
envelope.
I come
I
back
don't
to the
think I have
Oscars.
that.
Like maybe Denzel was like, "I'm going to accept this award on behalf of Lionel Messi." He couldn't be here. He's on location filming a Bud Light commercial or whatever. Which beer does he push? Michelob Ultra. I think
Yeah,
it's
that's the
Michelob
one.
Ultra.
Yeah.
He's out filming a Michelob. He's on a beach somewhere, kicking cans around like they're soccer balls, and he couldn't be here to receive his Presidential Medal of Freedom. So I'm going to take it to him later. What the heck is that? And again, what did he do, Rob? What did he do? He's a UNICEF ambassador. He's obviously got, he's just like so many extremely wealthy people. He's got a foundation. I'm sure that foundation does a lot of good work. I'm going to come back to being cynical for a second.
Our natural resting place.
Lots of people's foundations don't do jack crap. What they do is create tax advantages for said extremely wealthy person. All right, maybe you can do both things. Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be, I got some tax advantages from my foundation, and my foundation, feeds poor people or hungry people, or people during famine, or we spread the joy of soccer around the world, or whatever it is. We help kids born with defects get surgeries. I don't know. You can do both things, I guess. You can do good in the world and get some tax benefits. But man, if that's what he got this for, that's sort of the bare minimum for somebody with the wealth of Lionel Messi. Am I wrong on that front?
No, you're not. You're not wrong. Sorry, I was getting a little distracted. I just got an alert that Fubo TV and the Walt Disney Company just put a merger in, so that might be a news story for the future. But as far as Lionel Messi, yeah, to your point, I'm sure his foundation may or may not do extravagant things. What might be behind this? Jorge Mas might be an excellent lobbyist. And
I
he
think
might
that's
have
really very, very true. Because I've talked about this before on this show. Jorge Mas's thing is anti-communist politics. Outside of his business, which his dad started and which he's inherited, which he runs, and soccer, which I think largely, this is again my cynical take, maybe Jorge Mas was a little boy kicking a ball around Miami, dreaming of the day there would be a soccer team in Miami. Kind of doubted. I think this is all a vehicle for the continued anti-communist, anti-Cuban regime politics of Jorge Mas. They're going to name the stadium Freedom Park. This is the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It all ties in very nicely for Jorge Mas to connect his guy, the guy who is the central figure of his soccer team, to the president, to the Medal of Freedom, to Freedom Park, to the idea of an anti-communist approach to everything.
But there is an old truth, though. Freedom isn't free, Jason.
No.
Sometimes it costs you $1.05, and Jorge Mas probably spent a great deal more than that to get him to this position. But we shall see.
Man, again, as a cynic, it's hard for me to get to a place of like, this devalues the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and that really bothers me. I'm not even sure, Rob, that I had thought too much about the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I'm actually, demographically more inclined to be somebody who would than a lot of people, because my dad served in the military for 20 years, and my grandfather was in the Army for 30 years and served in a couple wars, right? Like, I'm sort of one of those people that would probably care more about this. Like, I'm the guy that for a long time, and maybe we still, he gets extremely offended when people are talking and moving around during the national anthem at a sporting event, even if that's
we have a lot in common, and you tusk me, because that's when you get to the beer line, man.
Okay, well, if you're going to be in the beer line and the national anthem is playing, at least stop for a moment, put your hand over your heart, take your hat off, do the appropriate thing, I guess would be my attitude about your attitude about the beer line. Look, again, and I'm not always super precious about this stuff, as maybe I used to be as a younger person, but I don't love that we've taken what is supposed to be the highest civilian honor that this country bestows upon anybody, and we've turned it into something that, and it may be true for other people that received it this time around or last time around, that they aren't really super deserving of it, this is something that is based on the idea of politics or lobbying or whatever. And yeah, if David Beckham didn't get this award, how can Lionel Messi deserve it? That's what I need to know.
Let's get your hot takes in. Send in your comments. Who should have won the Presidential Medal of Honor before one Lionel Messi? Send them in. What's it? What's the phone number? The shout line? Send your suggestions in to 555-555, or just send them in to morningkickaround@gmail.com. Follow along at @mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And can't emphasize this enough. Hit the subscribe button to Morning Kickaround on YouTube. Morning Kickaround, 2 words. Hit that button, and it'll help us a great deal to make this grow and become the eventual center of the American soccer conversation, Jason.
That's right. Do all those things Rob just said.
Do all the things. We're going to catch our breath, come right back with the big question of the day here on Monday's episode of Morning Kickaround. Today on Monday's big question, it is January, so transfers are in the news. The big news over the weekend as far as American soccer players, Brandon Vazquez reportedly making a $10 million move from Monterrey to the MLS. So the big question today, did Brandon Vazquez hurt his national team stock with a move to Major League Soccer?
Yeah, I guess we could talk about the price tag here first. Again, Tom Bogert is the guy that is reporting this, because he's the one on top of everything. And, hey, a little tease, Tom Bogert on this show on Friday.
Oh, nice.
MLS transfers. So make sure you're here on Friday for Tommy B, Tommy Scoops, whatever we're calling him these days. The mustachioed marauder is one that I like to use. Hercules Gomez. All right, so this is off of Tom Bogert. Breaking Austin FC are finalizing a deal to sign U.S. men's national team forward Brandon Vazquez from CF Monterrey per sources. Fee is north of $6 million. This was Tom's original post, $6 million plus add-ons. I think maybe the add-ons will get to 10. I've seen 10 around. The price tag is certainly interesting, but it's this part I think that is our big question today, what Herc says. I hope he's getting a bag, because this is the most likely going to cost him with the national team. Vazquez has a unique skill set compared to the other 9s in the pool, but when everyone is healthy, he's on the outside looking in. Going back to MLS won't do him any favors. Brandon Vazquez. Okay, first of all, let's ponder what Herc is saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that premise, to be honest.
Okay, you don't agree with the premise that this hurts his national team prospects?
No, I don't think so. I don't know how. I mean, is there a long track record of players like losing their stock? Is there that much of a difference between League MX and MLS in the eyes of the people that it matters, in the eyes of Pochettino? Is he going to be like, well, he was in Mexico, now he's in MLS, so I don't know about this guy anymore?
Pochettino keeps talking about the importance of Major League Soccer, but that is just a practical approach to managing the U.S. men's national team, because every national team manager knows that you can't just say, oh, you have to be playing outside the U.S. or you won't be in the national team picture, because depth questions and injuries are probably going to force you to look at the pool of players that are in MLS. And I do think it's worth, you can't just make a blanket statement. Playing in a foreign league is better than playing in MLS. Because not every foreign league is better than MLS from top to bottom, or in weekly challenge or in quality. They are different, right? They are different in terms of how they play. So the Mexican league plays differently than Major League Soccer, and maybe that's a factor here. Maybe that's a thing. Hercules Gomez is a guy who played in MLS, who played in Liga MX, who covers both leagues on ESPN, who talks about the big picture of soccer in North America. He knows both leagues very well. It's pretty clear that he believes Liga MX is ahead of MLS, or at least at the top end. And Monterrey is one of the top end teams in Mexico. You can take issue with that premise. I'm not sure I do, because of what Nate says. There's a difference between sitting on the bench in Mexico and playing in MLS. If anything, this is probably a good move for him. Meaning, this is the universal question when it comes to a lot of players. Do you go to a quote-unquote better league where there's more challenge, where the training intensity is likely higher, because that is something that is often said about MLS. The training intensity is not the same as if you go to Belgium, for example. Is it better to go somewhere and maybe not play as much? Now, you don't know. Like, a lot of players leave and go, I'm going to play, and then they don't. So now they're on the bench in a higher quality league, or maybe they're getting spot minutes, right? This is a Gio Reyna question that we've been talking about a lot recently, Rob. Like, should Gio Reyna leave Dortmund because he's not getting regular minutes? And now that Julian Brandt is back, well, that makes it even more difficult for him, and he's only going to be a late-game substitute, and that's not good enough, and blah, blah, blah. Like, is it better for Gio Reyna to be on the bench and be a squad player at Dortmund than to be a starter in a lesser league or in a lesser club? And I think Brendan Vasquez is in a similar position. Now, Brendan Vasquez also is going to benefit financially, as Herc says. I hope he gets a bag. And I'm going to bring in another post from Blue Sky, from Andrew Wisnowski, who says, hardest question for a bubble men's national team guy like Vasquez. Never guaranteed you make the national team or even play regularly if you take the risk to go to Europe. But a paycheck isn't as great of a story to tell your grandkids than about a World Cup, right? So about if you make the national team and you go to World Cup, what a great story you can tell. And then Andrew, being practical, says World Cup appearances don't pay for your grandkids' college tuition. And it's every player's conundrum, Rob. This is every player's situation. Like, do I take a risk, go to a quote unquote better league, maybe don't play as much, maybe I'm not the man, right? Or do I go to a place like, do I go back to MLS in the case of Brendan Vasquez, who's had success in MLS, get a bunch of money in your pocket, set up your family, be more comfortable, culturally perhaps, I don't know, and knowing you can play well and score in that league, maybe it does ultimately benefit you for the men's national team. But again, I mean, I don't think in this case, Brandon's question of leaving Liga MX for MLS is as clear as it would be if you were leaving the Premier League for MLS, or Italy for MLS, or Spain. Those are different kinds of equations for players who are on the bench in top 5 leagues in Europe and are wondering if MLS might be a good place for them to be.
Yeah, those steps are not equivalent between what you're talking about with the European to come home to MLS compared Liga MX to come back to MLS. But I thought that Mike in the comments made a nice comment saying that it maybe, if anything, it's a signal of stagnation. That, okay, so he went from Major League Soccer to Liga MX. So arguably, we could discuss that at length. What is Liga MX higher on the ladder? Right. But certainly returning to the league that you were just at 2 seasons before wouldn't be a sign of progress or growth for the player. So that's probably the inclination.
I'm not sure these things are as linear as we want them to be. I mean, that would be lovely if
decisions and moments.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Vasquez good enough to play in Liga MX? I would argue that he is.
I mean, it's not like he didn't see the field at all. I mean, in 2024-25, he's already has 31 appearances, 8 goals, and an assist. And last year, he played 19 games, scoring 6 times. So it's not like he was completely absent in Mexico.
Right. He wasn't a disaster. Right. Was he what they wanted him to be? No, probably not. I mean, he wasn't a scoring leader in Liga MX. And again, he's playing for a very ambitious team with a lot of resources in Monterrey. Mm-hmm. And Monterrey's just doing business. Right? They're just doing business. So, and I know there was that rumor that his contract was canceled. That Monterrey, basically, I think the implication was Monterrey has given up on Brandon Vasquez. He's not good enough. Right? That was sort of the thing that was bouncing around the internet. And it was Tom Bogert who had to come and say, no, that's not true. But there is a potential move for Brandon Vasquez in the offing. And it was Austin. And by the way, some of this is about that. It is about Austin being willing to put the money down. Because if you're a player in Brandon Vasquez's situation and nothing is guaranteed to you, your future as a player is not guaranteed. Your knee could go out tomorrow. Right? And every player is aware that their lifespan as a player is limited. If you're presented with this opportunity to get a bag of cash, right? We want to romanticize this and turn this into, he'll be giving up on his national team chances. His hopes of playing in a World Cup are, I don't know why this is a British guy, but his hopes of playing in a World Cup are done. And we want to turn this into something, like, if it was me, I would do it this way. Bullshit. You don't know what you would do. You don't know what you would do if you're looking at your bank account and you're wondering, hey, can I send my kids to a great private school, to a good college? I want to do everything I can for them. Or my wife wants this kind of house. And yeah, maybe some of that is a little, not greedy, but a little bit over. Like, what's really important in your life? You want to talk about it, Rob? What's really important is family and comfort. But you don't have to be rich to be happy. But most of us presented with this opportunity to get what Brendan Vasquez is going to get out of this deal would say, yes, please, I will take that. To play in what he still believes, I'm sure, is a good league, to play in a league he knows, to be in his home country again. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be in Mexico, but if this was, hey, a team in Qatar wants to pay $10 million for you, he might not say yes to that, no matter what the money is, because he doesn't want to go to Qatar. Right? So this is like a lot of different things all mixed up, and we're kind of stripping it down and reducing it to, it's going to hurt his national team chances, without really knowing. And I will say this, all right? So I'll go back to what Herc said. Vasquez has a unique skill set compared to the other nines in the pool, but when everyone is healthy, he's on the outside looking in. That would be true whether he is in Monterrey or Austin, right?
Yep.
That's true regardless of where he plays, because Ricardo Pepi and Valorant Balogun and some of these other players are ahead of him. Haji Wright even. Who knows what happens if Daryl DK is ever healthy, although Daryl DK is not ever healthy. Please, Daryl DK, get healthy.
I would love that. That'd be great.
We don't know. Like, he's already a fringe player. He's already a bubble player. Why would he make any decision right now when there's money on the table based on his national team prospects? That doesn't make any sense for me. Like, if I'm thinking about this as a person, as a professional, as what's best for not just me, but the people around me that I care for, that I'm responsible for, I don't even worry about the national team. If the national team is going to happen, it's going to happen. Right? I don't say, hey, well, I got to stick it out in Monterrey because, well, I won't play for the national team if I go to Austin, when you haven't been playing for the national team anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been. Yeah, he's definitely on the outside looking in, and this move probably doesn't do much one way or the other, in my opinion. And then going back to the point of, would you take another job to give you more money? Of course you would. Of course you would, unless you're like one of the, the 1% in the footballing world or in any profession really that can choose where they go. For 99% of us, you take the opportunity.
Who gets to say things like, "Oh, you shouldn't go for the money. You've got to go for the best competition, the best opportunity." Those are people who have already achieved, already have themselves set up because they've achieved a lot, and then they get to say from their ivory tower, "Don't chase the money." And again, we're not talking about Brendan Vasquez going to Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about Brendan Vasquez going to China. We're talking about Brendan Vasquez coming back to his home country to play in MLS, which, whatever you want to say in MLS, it is not a bad league, right? And so, again, it's like, even if MLS was the worst league you could think of, I don't know how deep you'd have to go down. It's better than Guatemala. It's better than Bolivia. It's better than, how deep in Europe do you have to go before you're like, oh, it's really bad down there? Even if MLS was in that area, if they were saying, Brendan Vasquez, here's a DP contract and we're spending $10 million to bring you back to America, it's still a very, very tough thing to say no to. Still regardless of your national team prospects or your national team ambitions or aspirations. Right? Go ahead.
One last little note on this topic before we move along. Mike Thomas, in fairness, do you agree with Mike here saying Austin probably more likely to sell to Europe than a Liga MX team? Do you think do you agree with that?
Liga MX to Europe transfers are few and far between. They do happen. They're not as sort of normalized as MLS. So I would say that, yes, in a general sense, Mike is right, that Austin and Major League Soccer are more open to this. I mean, it could be 2 years of banging in goals and Brendan Vasquez could get a chance to play in the championship. Mm-hmm. And if the championship is, if it's a level that Brendan Aronson can make the national team from, then it's a level that Brendan Vasquez can make the national team from. Or Haji Wright's making the national team from that level. Brendan Vasquez can make the national team from that level. So none of this closes the door. I take Herc's point. Maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult for Brendan Vasquez. But again, it does not fundamentally change his place in the pecking order. It's not as though he was ahead of 3 other guys, and now because he's going to MLS, we have to demote him below those guys. He was not ahead of those guys to begin with. So what he needs to do is prove that he can consistently score goals, make it impossible for Mauricio Pochettino to ignore him, and then maybe he gets a chance to play for the national team. And the World Cup, I know, is right around the corner, and this is about that. But Brandon Vazquez is 26 years old. It doesn't mean the world ends if he doesn't play. It doesn't play in a league that can get him to the World Cup in 2026. And again, if he's scoring goals in MLS and Balogun's hurt and Haji Wright is hurt, and Haji Wright may be more of a winger now, but Josh Sargent is still hurt. Again, a guy who can make the national team from the championship level, but Josh Sargent is hurt, and Ricardo Pepi is hurt or still isn't playing. There's a chance for Brandon Vazquez. There's a chance. Go score goals in Austin. See what happens.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. We will be back on Wednesday morning here on Morning Kickaround. Camp Cupcake roster should be out by then, right?
I believe so. I believe it's going to drop today, so we're just kind of missing it via our bad timing by being a morning. How dare we be a morning show, Rob? I'm checking my inbox. Click, click, click. It's not there yet.
Nothing there yet, so we will be back on Monday. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. MK Ultras,
we'll be back.
You've done it. It is the mother of all Mondays, and we've made it in all the best moving forward. We shall see what happens this afternoon in the Super Copa Italia Maximus from Riyadh. We shall see, but thanks for tuning in, and until Wednesday, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.